Tonight, 3 true stories where the police arrived and still couldn't save anyone. Stay quiet and listen closely. What you're about to hear are 3 real nightmares. These aren't just stories people tell around a campfire. These are documented events, cases that baffled investigators and left communities terrified. We trust the police to be our last line of defense, the people who show up when things go horribly, horribly wrong. But in these next 3 stories, the arrival of law enforcement was just the beginning of an even deeper mystery. They showed up, they investigated, they searched, and they found nothing. Our first story begins on a stretch of road so isolated it feels like the edge of the world. County Road 113. It's a thin ribbon of asphalt cutting through dense forest. Empty fields on the other side. No streetlights, no houses for long stretches. Tall, dark trees pressing in on both sides. It's the kind of place where your cell phone loses signal, and your car is the only sign of human life for as far as the eye can see. This is where, on a cold October night, a young man named Alex disappeared without a trace. Alex was just driving home from a friend's house, a trip he'd made 100 times before. It was a simple hour-long drive, but this time, he never made it. When he was hours late, his family started to panic. They called his phone. It went straight to voicemail. They called his friends. They confirmed he had left on time. The dread began to set in. That cold, heavy feeling in the pit of your stomach. They had no choice but to call the police. The initial police report was for a missing person. Pretty standard stuff. But that changed when a patrol car found his vehicle. The engine was cold, the doors were unlocked, the keys were still in the ignition. His wallet was on the passenger seat, and his phone was on the dashboard. Everything was there, except for Alex. It was as if he had just stepped out of the car and into thin air. The officers on scene were immediately unsettled. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken glass, no blood. They started a preliminary search of the immediate area, their powerful flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness of the woods. They called his name over and over, but the only reply was the echo of their own voices. The next morning, the real search began. This was a massive operation. The dogs were brought to the car to get Alex's scent. They picked up a trail immediately, leading from the driver's side door directly into the dense, dark woods. And then, it just stopped. In a small, unremarkable clearing, the dogs suddenly became confused. The trail was gone. The handlers had never seen anything like it. A scent trail doesn't just vanish. They expanded the search grid, bringing in helicopters with thermal imaging cameras to scan the vast forest from above. They spent days, which turned into weeks, combing every square inch of that wilderness. They interviewed everyone Alex knew, searching for any reason he might have run away or met with foul play. But every single lead dried up. He had no enemies, no debts, no secret life. He was just a normal guy. The investigators kept coming back to the car, the keys in the ignition, the wallet on the seat. It didn't look like a robbery. It didn't look like he had run away. Or why would he leave his wallet and phone? It looked like he had stopped the car, walked 2 miles into the woods, and then simply ceased to exist. Local theories started to run wild. People in the nearby towns whispered about strange lights seen in the sky over the woods that night. Old legends about the forest were resurrected. The police officially dismissed these as local folklore. But unofficially, some officers admitted the case made the hair on their arms stand up. The search was eventually scaled back. The case went cold. Years have passed, and there has never been another clue. No body, no clothing, no sign of Alex. County Road 113 is still there, a dark, lonely stretch of pavement. His car was eventually towed away, but the spot where it was found is still known to locals, a place people avoid after dark. The police did everything by the book. They conducted one of the largest search operations in the state's history. They followed every protocol, every procedure, and they found nothing. Alex's family never got any answers. They are left with a ghost, a memory of a man who stepped out of his car on a lonely road and walked into a mystery that no one can solve. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes there are no answers. Imagine being one of those officers, standing in that clearing where the trail just ended. What do you write in your report? How do you explain the unexplainable? You can't. And that's what makes this story so unbelievably terrifying. Our next story is about a different kind of terror. It's not about a person vanishing into thin air, but about something that appears out of nowhere. This is the story of Sarah, a young woman who moved into a quiet suburban apartment, hoping for a fresh start. But instead of peace, she found herself haunted by a relentless, inexplicable knocking that slowly drove her to the edge of sanity. And the police, who she called desperately for help, were powerless to stop it. It started subtly. A few weeks after moving in, Sarah was watching TV late one night when she heard it. A soft, rhythmic tap-tap-tapping. It sounded like it was coming from her front door. She muted the TV and listened. Silence. But the next night it happened again. Tap, tap, tap. A little louder this time. A little more insistent. The hallway was empty and silent. There was no one there. This became a nightly ritual. 3 knocks, a pause, then 3 more. Sarah started to get scared. She asked her neighbors if they'd heard anything, but they all said no. It wasn't just on her front door anymore. She'd hear it on her bedroom window, even though she was on the 3rd floor. She'd be in the shower and hear 3 sharp raps on the bathroom wall. It was everywhere. The sound followed her from room to room, a constant, menacing presence. Sleep became impossible. One night, it was worse than ever. The knocking was so loud it sounded like someone was trying to break it down. Bam, bam, bam. Terrified, Sarah grabbed her phone and hid in her closet, dialing 911. 2 officers arrived within minutes. They found Sarah huddled in her closet. But when they inspected the apartment, they found nothing. The door was secure, the windows locked. They searched the hallway, the stairwell, even the roof. There was no one there. They were polite, but they clearly thought she was imagining things. They told her to call if it happened again, and it did. The very next night. This cycle repeated itself over and over for weeks. Sarah started seeing a figure, a tall, shadowy shape standing at the end of the hallway, just for a second, before vanishing. She tried to tell the officers, but it only made them more skeptical. Desperate, she installed a security camera pointing at her front door. One night, the phone buzzed. Motion detected. The hallway was empty, but from the phone's speaker, tap, tap, tap. It wasn't a prank because there was no prankster. It wasn't a break-in because nothing was broken. It was just a sound from nowhere. The police, for all their authority and power, could do nothing. They couldn't arrest a sound. They couldn't file a restraining order against a shadow. They admitted to Sarah that they were at a loss. They had exhausted all logical explanations. They had no idea what was happening to her, and they had no way to make it stop. They had responded to her calls, but they couldn't save her from the terror she was living in. Sarah eventually broke her lease and moved out. The knocking stopped the day she left. The apartment was rented to a new tenant, and as far as anyone knows, the knocking never returned. It was as if whatever was there wanted her, and only her. She was the target. This story is terrifying because it highlights the limits of our protectors. The police are equipped to deal with physical threats, with criminals you can see and touch. But what about a threat that is invisible? A horror that leaves no evidence except for a terrified witness and a sound on a recording. They came, they listened, and they left, leaving Sarah alone with the knocking. Our final story is perhaps the most unsettling of all. It doesn't involve a chase or a visible entity, but a creeping, pervasive wrongness, culminating in a discovery so bizarre, it defies explanation. This is the story of Apartment 4B. Police were called multiple times, stood outside the door, and had no idea. The building was a standard mid-range apartment complex. The tenant in 4B was Mr. Harrison, a quiet, elderly recluse. No one knew much about him. He paid his rent on time, never had visitors, was rarely seen. The only interaction his neighbors had with him was through the walls, the noises. It began with strange scraping sounds, a long, slow, dragging like heavy furniture being moved, then a low, continuous humming, a vibration through the walls. Then came the smells, a sharp chemical odor, like ammonia or ozone, seeping from under his door. The building manager knocked. No answer. He left a note. The noises and smells continued, sometimes worse, sometimes gone for days. First welfare check. 3 days of silence. 2 officers arrived, announced, and listened. Silence. They pressed their ears to the door. Nothing. They tried the handle. Locked. Without probable cause, they couldn't enter. Their hands were tied. A week later, they were back. The scraping was frantic now, with rhythmic thudding. It went on for hours. They called the emergency contact, a distant nephew. He gave permission to enter. The superintendent turned the key. Officers stood ready. The first thing that hit them was the cold, like a meat locker, and the smell, sharp, electric, chemical. But the apartment was empty. Not just people. It was surgically bare. No furniture, no bed, no table, no chairs, no lamps. The closets were empty. The kitchen cupboards were bare. No clothes, no food, no personal belongings. Even the light bulbs had been removed. It wasn't just empty. It was unnaturally clean. No dust anywhere. Then they saw the marks. Deep, circular scrapes in the center of the main room, like heavy, round machinery dragged repeatedly. On the wall shared with 4A, hundreds of small, perfectly spaced indentations, like methodical tapping for a very long time. No sign of Mr. Harrison. Bank accounts untouched, credit cards unused, not found in hospitals. How does a person, and everything they own, vanish from a locked room on the 4th floor? So there you have it. 3 stories where the system we rely on for protection was faced with something it couldn't comprehend. From a man who walked into the woods and never came out, to an invisible entity terrorizing a woman in her own home, to an entire life being erased from behind a locked door. These cases are so terrifying because they defy the logical world we think we live in. The police did their jobs. They responded. They investigated. But they were left with unanswered questions and their own limitations against the unknown. What really happened on County Road 113? What was making that knocking sound? What was going on inside apartment 4B? We may never know. The world is bigger and stranger than we can imagine. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't the monster you can see, but the one you can't. Thanks for watching. Now, try to get some sleep. If you thought those were unsettling, subscribe for more true chilling tales. Turn on notifications if you dare.